Why would you give somebody protection? Well, because you love them. You don't have it yourself, but you give it to other people. And so, same with freedom, maybe. Affection, caring, understanding, or even, by the way, strictness. So you have some teachers who are very strict with you. Why do you suppose they're strict with you? Yeah, so if something happened that made them strict, what do you suppose could have happened to them that would make them strict?
They got taken advantage of?
Maybe they got taken advantage of. Yeah, perhaps. Are there any other reasons?
Maybe someone died.
Safety, how do you mean?
Huh?
How do you mean safety?
You said strict, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you're safe.
Yeah, so what would be an example of them being strict to keep you safe?
Not letting you go
Right now.
For school shooter. My school shooter, what's that?
Coming home with life example.
What's that?
Coming home with life.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming home while the sun is still out. Why? Oh, but it's too much fun. Get home right now. Get home right now. But you must be home by noon. Then you can kind of go too far, as we've talked about. And that's where this freedom kind of thing comes from. And so if you ask teachers, for example, why are you so strict? That's one of the reasons they would give, is because they care about them. And this is why teachers will look at me and say, what's wrong with you? Why do you give so much freedom? And of course, I'll look at them and go, why are you so strict? And then it's probably a good tension to have. You've got some people in your lives who are very strict with you, some who kind of give you some freedom. And it's worth, at that point, especially at your age is now, to examine how it is that you live. In other words, if you're given the freedom, what kind of things do you do when you're given that freedom? And if you have that freedom taken away, what kind of things do you do when you have that freedom taken away? In other words, do positive things happen here? And we might think, well, it's the stuff I want to do. Yeah, but there's a difference between what we want to do and what we should do. There's a difference between what we want and what we need. I was just talking with someone right for nutrition about this. There's a distinction between what we need and what we want. And what we want, by the way, is really hard to figure out. If we think it's easy. I want this one thing right now. Okay, but if you knew the end of that, would you want it? In other words, if I want to, I guess going back to that, I want to go out right now. Okay, but no, you can't. I want to, though. Okay, but you suppose that if he had known what the ending of that was going to be, he still would have gone out. You know, and that's the hard thing about life. We don't know. We don't know what we want. I bet at this point we'd say, let me go back and redo this. I told you about the poster, about the painting I have on my wall over there. That was from a former student of mine. He died mid-year, and the last thing I said to him was, Aaron, you look like shit. And he said, I feel like shit, Scanlon. I said, you should get that checked out. He said, I think I'm going to get that checked out. That was literally the last conversation we had. And then we got along incredibly well. And then he went home, and rather than going to the doctor, he took a nap. He was going to take a nap before going to the doctor. And he took a nap first because he was just really tired. He never woke up from the nap. If he had gone straight to the doctor, he probably would have been, well, not probably, I happen to know, he would have been fine if he'd gone straight to the doctor. It was the falling asleep that caused it, let's just say that. And so now if you were to ask him, do you want to go to the doctor now? Oh, I don't want to, I'm tired. That's what you want. Well, what do you need? Well, I guess I need to go to the doctor. Not need in the sense of like you're being forced to, but in the sense of having something that you require in your life. So in that case there, he probably would afterwards have said, I think I'll go to the doctor instead. But that's what makes life so hard, because now afterwards it's easy to criticize. Why wasn't he home at 9? Why wasn't he taken to the doctor? There's lots of reasons for lots of things, and it's easy afterwards to make these kinds of criticisms. But life has to be lived forward. Life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived going forward. And so a lot of times the lessons that we take have to come afterwards. We have to kind of stand from this high place and look back on the mountain that we've walked up and gone, okay, I see how I got lost over there. I see how taking the trail up this way led me to where I am now. At the time you can't see it. You're hiking up a mountain, and you're covered by brush on all sides, and there's barely a trail. All that you see is there's some place that you're going up to, but you're not sure how you're going to get there. But afterwards you can look at it and go, oh man, if I had just taken that one route over there, there's a treasure chest right there. I would have been, there's millions in there. Or if I had just gone this way, oh my goodness, that's my old friend. I would have run into my old friend if I had gone this way. But unfortunately, we can't live that way. We can only live as we're going up the mountain, and afterwards we can see. And then at that point, we can see if we got the things that we wanted, or we can see if we got the things that we needed. And a lot of times you're going to find that we do get the things that we need, even if they're not the things that we want. An interesting thing to do, and I've done this is why I can say it's interesting. I talk to people who go through major life changes at the time. They go through like divorces, they go through illnesses, they go through getting laid off of jobs. And then year, 2 years, 3 years afterwards, I like to ask people these things. So how's it turned out for you? Is your life better now, before the divorce, or after the divorce? Is your life better before the illness, or now that you've come out on the other side of it? When you got laid off, it was a horrible thing, and emotional thing. Are you better off now, or before you were laid off? And it's almost, and I'm not joking, man, it's almost 100% of the time people say, you know what, things are better now than they were before then. But that's the thing, is that when you're going up the mountain, you're covered by brush on all sides, and it's hot, and there's no shade, things feel terrible. And they are terrible in the sense that they feel terrible, because we're not getting the things that we think we want. And it's only afterwards that you can look back and see that sometimes you get the things that you need. And so, love means giving something that you don't have to someone who doesn't want it. Maybe the things that we're being given are the things that we do need, even if we don't want them at the times. Something someone brought up last period was, well, maybe you want love, but just not from that person. Or maybe you want to learn math. Like I hear this all the time about the Indian guy on YouTube who can explain something to you in a way that your math teacher will take a whole semester to explain it to you. Well, maybe the reason is because you're looking it up. In other words, you're being forced to go to your math class, and you're voluntarily looking something up on YouTube. And so maybe that is responsible for the mindset that makes it easier to learn from the things that you choose, or that you learn from the ways that you choose to learn, if this makes sense. I think back to, I don't know if I told you this story or not. I think back to when I used to coach baseball here, and there was I'll show you guys. When you're holding a baseball bat, you're supposed to hold it like this. Your knuckles line up like this. People hold baseball bats intuitively a lot of times like this. This is the wrong way to hold a bat. This is the proper way to hold a bat. If you swung a bat for most of your life the wrong way, when someone gives you the right way to do it, you're going to feel uncomfortable. Same way, by the way, that if someone has never given you love before, you live life without it, all of a sudden when you get it, it's going to be uncomfortable. If you've lived without protection your whole life, it's now uncomfortable when somebody wants to protect you. Whenever anything in your life changes, it's uncomfortable. This is intuitive. So anyway, I would stress this and stress this and stress this to players all the time. And they just wouldn't want to do it because they would just say, well, no, but this is more natural for me. And we'll say something like that. Well, no, but it's different for me. No, physiology is physiology. The reason you do it is because it lines up your muscles and your skeletal structure differently. Unless you're very, very strange, all of our muscles and skeletal structures are aligned the same way. And so you turn this way. It allows you to bring your hands inside. It allows you with more power, gives you more extension, far more back control. And if your hands are like this, try to swivel your wrists around some comfortable way. Here, much easier to do this, much more comfortable to do this. So anyway, I stressed this for a long time, among other things, by the way. And then the players here, it's one of the reasons I don't coach anymore, because the players here, I have found anyway in my experience, entirely uncoachable in a lot of ways. Maybe it's a difference between who I played under. I mean, I played under Gary Adams, the winningest coach in college history. Maybe it's because I knew who that person was, and I said, wow, this person has a lot to teach me. I see a lot of athletes here. I hear a lot of trash talked about the coaches for various sports. I hear almost no trash talked about the players, though. So I guess the coaches throw the pads on, and they get out there and they play, and they do badly? Is that what happens? Yeah, must be. Because the coaches get blamed for so much. Oh, it's the coaches. Okay, it's not you. How much time do you spend in the weight room? How much time do you spend after practice or before practice, not just during practice, working hard? I know that I used to open the weight room, and I'd get in there, and I was just a teacher. I'd be the first one in there, and I'd be the last one to leave. And all these athletes like to come around and look in the mirror and be like, oh, bro, no. I'm like, you're not even lifting. You're just in here to show up. You think like osmosis, you're gonna get stronger. No, and then that's the thing, is that it wasn't happening. I mean, and again, nothing is everything. There are some dedicated people. I'm not saying that nobody here is dedicated. Don't take that from that. But there are people that The concern is not the person next to you who's, for some reason, the guy likes to do this. It's not that guy who's next to you. It's the guy who's at a different school who isn't stopping, who is working out and getting stronger and faster and all of these things. That's the person to compete with. It's just like the person in life that you have to compete with is not the person sitting next to you in class right now. Yeah, they're competition, but it's people who you've never met before. That's the real competition. Anyway, so you have to be coachable. You have to be open to it. So this guy, one of the players here, he goes off to USD. They did like a weekend, like summer camp, baseball summer camp with some college coaches in the area. And he came back and he was telling me about all the stuff he learned. Like, for example, he's like, dude, we're not even holding the bat the right way. You're supposed to hold the bat with your knuckles like this. And he was going over, and a bunch of the players who didn't go, they were laughing because he's telling me about how to coach. And he's saying, you should go to that sometimes, coach. You could learn a lot from those guys. I'm like, yeah, I imagine I probably could. Like I said, I played under the winningest coach in college history and a few other incredible coaches. I played with a coach at Emory who goes on to coach the Olympic baseball team. Coach, and again, these are some phenomenal people. Higher caliber than the people that he learned under that weekend, but fine, we let it go. And the point is that everybody was laughing, and they were telling him, Coach talks about that all the time. He's like, no, he doesn't. Yeah, he does. He tells us all the time. There's this way, for some reason, that when people lead off of second base, they like go way around this big arc. I have no idea why. They learn this like in Little League or something. You never see pro players do this. Why? Because it's a waste of energy, space, resources, time. Everything about it is wrong, but it looks cool. And so they do it in Little League because it looks cool. And he's telling me, we shouldn't be leading off that way. I'm like, really? That's a deep idea, man. I should go learn from coaches like this. Why? Because they weren't ready to receive it. This is one of the reasons that teachers will burn out, because it's like, oh my God, I've been trying to teach you this for the longest while. But maybe it's your personality. Maybe it's the way that they're approaching the class. Maybe it's because you're a teacher at the front of the room. Maybe it's because of whatever impression they assume about you, have in you. Or maybe it's the way that you're presenting it. It's a whole bunch of things can go wrong in there. But my point is that you'll see that we'll want to get these things across. But unless you're willing to receive it and you're prepared to receive it, you won't receive anything in life. And so maybe what you have to do is be open to receive the things that you need, not just the things that you want. Because what you want, you won't know until afterwards you're looking down at that mountain down the road, As I talked about Scarface in here, yes? Scarface movie, you guys have seen the movie Scarface? You should if you haven't. The whole movie is about this guy who comes from nothing and then climbs his way up a drug empire. And at the very end of there's a woman he wants, so he kills it. It's his boss's wife. He kills the boss, takes the wife. It's his best friend who's with him. He wants money, he wants status, he wants all of these things, and he takes it. And then in the movie, he's sitting there in this restaurant, a tuxedo. He's got his friend with him. He's got his wife with him. And he's got his arms like in this booth, and he has a cigar and playing music. Everybody in the room is in tuxedos. Expensive restaurant. He's looking around just like, is this it? This is what it's all about, man? This is what I've been fighting for? And he looks at his wife and says, her womb is so polluted with drugs, we can't have any kids. He's complaining about his friend who he thinks has stolen his sister. Everything in his life that he'd been fighting for, that he wanted, he got everything he wanted. He got nothing he needed. And so sometimes that's what we have to focus on. Where you are right now, there's a good chance that you are where you are right now because you're getting the things that you need. And so maybe we have to align it and try to figure out how is it that I'm getting what I need, and how is it that things I want maybe are interfering. And it's not that the things that you want are always going to interfere. You should want love and protection and freedom, and I suppose math, and maybe trust even, that's in there. But it's more than just that. It's more than just that. No, working it out. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?